And we're live. What's up, everybody? Pinche Ben here. Jimmy, my co-host.
What's up, everyone?
You guys know us as PB and J. Uh, Welcome to another episode of the Cast and Blast podcast. This is episode 10, Jimmy.
10. Yeah, we're
Yeah,
at
so
10 already.
yeah,
That's a benchmark in itself.
benchmarking itself, man. We are having fun filming these podcasts. Wish we had more podcasts coming to you guys, but had to travel for work, so I just got back and getting back in the seat with Jimmy here, and let's recap our last podcast where we talked about baits and making baits with RPG Outdoors. Hope you guys enjoyed having them as guests, man. We really enjoyed having them here talking about pouring some plastics, making some custom baits, and they have some amazing products. So go check them out at rpgoutdoors.com. Um, man, it's a good time to pick up the rods again, ain't it, Jimmy?
Yeah, well, like we were talking earlier, like you said, put down the rifles, pick up the rods.
Yeah,
It's that time of year, to where it's
yeah. The
getting
focus is on fishing
we're
right now.
we're getting away from the hunting and start looking at fishing. Although we got turkey season
Good turkey season. We're gonna be
kind of
doing
coming
that.
around, so
Yeah,
we'll be sprinkle in a little bit. But
yeah. Get a
man,
little camo back on and do all that.
when you've
But
been doing as much hunting as we have been, we start looking forward to that fishing though. So
I'm definitely looking forward to hitting the water, both saltwater and freshwater. We're here in an area where we do a lot of freshwater fishing. We're right in the center of Texas, man. So we kind of get we get out and we are able to get down to the coast and do some saltwater fishing. We're looking forward to doing some of that. And
I'm looking forward to learning some of that. I know I went saltwater fishing, real saltwater fishing for my first time this past summer, and I thought it was going to be simple and easy, and I got humbled very quickly. It wasn't that easy, so there's some things for me to learn there.
and me myself growing up on the coast down there from Corpus Christi, so I did a lot of saltwater fishing, a lot of wade fishing. I personally like doing a little surf fishing and doing a lot of wade fishing, hitting the flats, watching them tails, sight casting, um, and I got some honey holes I'll take you down to where we have some good success. I got some cousins down there that are.
Hey, that stuff sounds scary though. I'm not gonna lie. Like getting into the salt water.
Uh huh.
I mean, you
Yeah,
got the stingrays, you got
you,
the sharks,
you
you
do,
got jellyfish.
you do.
You got things with teeth.
Yeah, it's a different animal. You're definitely not lipping fish like you do in the salt water.
Yeah.
Pull them out. It's everything's with some fish grips, and you have your tools that you are flinging off your hard heads and stuff. It's a little different. The catfish we catch saltwater aren't like the sought after fish like
Right.
they are in freshwater. So, man, I look forward to doing that with you. We're gonna have some good times. I already got some things lined up with some cousins down there. They're gonna take us out, do some wade fishing. So, start stocking up on some a decent set of waders. I mean, as the water warms up, you don't necessarily need waders. I go out there in shorts and
So
just
summer's a good time to be down there, right?
yeah, I love
Summer's a
going
good
down
time.
there. Once anything after April, I want to get in the water and
Well, April's good here though. What's happening in April?
man, we got spawn.
We got the spawn.
Yeah, so we're looking forward to that right now. And the water temperature is changing right now, or typically around this time it's starting to warm up. And it
It, it
is.
was
Yeah,
warming up.
and what we can say it is significant changes, not necessarily, but 1 or 2 degrees of change of temperature is a game changer for
Yep.
any angler.
Yeah, we were on a good warming trend,
We were,
and then we
then
had
the
this front blow
front come
through.
through, and
It's not cold for a lot of people out there, but for us here in Central Texas, when you're in the 50s in
yeah, we
mid
don't own
March,
jackets in Texas.
yeah, yeah,
You know what I
when
mean?
it's in the
But
50s in mid March, was highs and then getting down into the 30s, and I think last night it was right at the freezing mark. That's cold for
yeah,
us in March.
there was some freeze warnings in the area, and going outside of the Texas area, people are feeling this front and this winter storm, so to speak, all around us. And the
Yeah,
states are some of these states are going through snow and all kinds of stuff right now, and we're spring.
yeah. I was looking at up where I used to fish in Kansas. I think yesterday or day before, I think it was 8 degrees, and I was like,
Single digit.
man, I'm glad. I mean, I'm I'm okay with the cold now, but when it's 8, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah,
But it's
there's a threshold,
there is a threshold.
and I'm with you. I
Now we're
can.
gonna reach the other threshold here in Texas soon, and that's the heat threshold.
So be
So
careful what you wish
yeah,
for, right?
exactly.
Everyone's complaining about the cold, but I guarantee you, when that heat comes out and we're in them triple digits for a long, sustained, time. I think last year, June, I think it was, every day of the month we were in triple digits,
Yeah, I think we hit
or July.
something. We hit like 60 days of triple digits in a row, or
Yeah,
it was something. I don't
yeah,
remember
consecutive.
exactly,
It
but
was a record-breaking summer for us last
it
year.
was miserable. That's what it was.
It was hot.
Yeah,
Man, there was ACs being busted left and right. I know friends were talking about, man, this and that. So hey, I would say go ahead and get your AC service now
yeah.
if you're in the area. It's gonna get hot. It's gonna
You know,
get
it's
hot
crazy. I
quick.
did a lot of fishing last summer too,
Yeah,
and almost all of my fishing, I didn't leave home until in the summer it gets dark a lot later.
sure.
Um, I wouldn't even leave home until like 7 in the evening and
Mm-hmm.
just fish night.
Yeah, because it's cooler.
Yeah, I couldn't bear the heat.
Yeah,
I mean, what you will,
I
but
was
it
too,
was
man. I
miserable.
mean, I carry what I like to call a year-round tan, and I was definitely wearing long sleeves everywhere I
Yeah,
fish, and had that definite that contrast where have my ring and my watch on, it would take it off and fluorescent skin
yeah,
from that part. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. We're talking about spawn, and
yeah. It's coming quick.
this is a time to get out there, man. I mean, right here in our area, the water is low. Our lakes are really low right now. We got some boat ramps that are closed.
Yeah, lots of boat ramps are closed. I think the average for the local lakes in the Central Texas area, a lot of it's weird. As you move north of here,
Yeah,
lakes aren't near as low. As you move
correct.
south of here, they're not as low, and east of here, but west and here,
Yeah.
here where we are locally, and then west of here, the lakes are averaging 15 to 17 feet below average, and that's huge in a lake.
And I argue that number, and I don't know if the because I mean we were talking about it earlier. I was fishing last year. The water hasn't risen at all,
Right.
and I was fishing last year around this time, and we were 15 feet below normal water level, and we can both agree that it's much lower now.
I'm when I'm bank fishing, my truck is parked um, further out than where I'm normally casting baits at, and that's
So you're actually, and we talked about that. We're actually standing where we're normally casting, or where we're casting to. We're
yeah,
actually standing now where we were casting to a year ago,
yeah, or standing further than where I was casting.
even further.
In certain places, parts of the lake.
Yeah, I know you're looking back at the shore, so to speak, at the
Yeah,
bank, and
hmm
you're like, wow, the water was right there, and it's far. I mean, it's a significant drop right now,
and it makes
which
it.
means the so the water percentage, or the amount of water is, we talked about earlier. We looked it up, and it was about 60.
67 so the lake is at 67% capacity, particular lake that we fished this past weekend.
Right. So,
67% capacity.
and I round that up to closer to 50% than I do to 100.
Right.
Right. So in perspective, um, that's that's really low.
That
I
is
mean, that's scary low. And we talk about just driving past and going around the lake. I mean, there's places you could build a house on right now where was a a deep hole
yeah.
last year, and it's looking like it's going to be a tough season.
Yeah, I mean, it changes the dynamics of where you're gonna fish.
Yeah.
Um,
But
it
I mean, the fundamentals will still remain.
the
I mean,
fundamentals will remain, and what it does is it gives you a good perspective of take mental notes or take pictures with your phone of what your
look,
honey holes and your favorite spots look like when the water level is that low.
particularly when you're fishing from the bank, guys, this is a good opportunity to see that actual, those transitions, see those you might see some logs, you might see some rocks, you might see some
Exactly.
some fall
Submerge,
drops.
yeah, submerge anything that's submerged, whether it's rocks, it's structure, trees. I found a lot of different cement blocks out there that I didn't know were there. Maybe the Corey engineer somebody put out there for spawn, different fish that spawn and
Right.
different things.
Right.
And you can find those spots when the water's down that low. So it's pretty cool. I've seen that.
You ever
And
go out looking for lures and
my
stuff?
son, my son finds he calls
Yeah.
them treasures.
Yeah.
But as we're fishing, man, that dude finds more. He,
I call it payback. You know, how many times have you
yeah,
lost some good expensive lures and you go out fishing and all of a sudden you add a couple pieces to your tackle box, right?
it's good because I mean, hell, I think I lost $30 in gear this past trip.
That's what I'm
Free
saying. It's like, so
pay
you
back, get it back.
get a little bit, you give some, you get some,
Yep.
right? So uh but yeah, man, we're talking about early spawn or spawn. It's not.
Yeah,
I
well,
mean, well, we talk about too.
it.
I mean, with the water temperature at where it's at right now,
I'll
the
tell you,
spawn may be a little off to the right a little.
it could have pushed it. This front could have pushed it to the right a little.
Right.
But I'll tell you, the other day before the front did come through and it got cold and I think it's going to be cold enough to lower those water temps back down, just maybe 1 or 2 degrees, which could throw that
Yeah.
spawn, could push it to the right. Um, a week, possibly 2 weeks, who knows? But I did notice that fish were moving to the shallows. It's
Yeah.
like pre-spawn, getting ready, coming up.
So for those of you that know, the spawn is something we all kind of wait for, and we can't wait for, right? Um, the spawn is the time where depending on the species, right? Here in Central Texas, we're talking, it could be anything from bass, um, you know, catfish, carp. There's a lot of different species you can pull out from the lakes and the ponds and stuff.
Right now, I mean, we're mainly talking about the bass
Yeah, I'm
spawn.
talking right now, largemouth bass. Spawning right now is the time where you're going to catch those fish getting to those shallower spots.
Yeah, getting up.
Looking for a bedding, and
Yeah,
they're
they're
going to
up
be,
on their beds and.
yep, protecting their eggs and you know,
So when you're fishing the spawn, what do you do anything to prepare? Do you get out there with like I don't know, a cereal bowl or a soup bowl and try to pitch into it just to
yeah.
it's
So
kind of like target practice, right? Just like hunting season, you're sighting in your rifle
right.
or your bow,
Yeah,
whatever to
I love
shoot.
pitching.
Yeah.
So I fish more bait caster than I do anything else. I do have spinning combos that I use for particular, uh, presentations or whatever. But for the most part, I'm unorthodox in the sense of I do a lot from the bait caster, and it's kind of weird because people look at me. I mean, I fish drop shot from the with a bait caster, and I know a lot of people are gonna be like, "What?" It's what works for you, right?
I'm a spinning reel guy.
So
And
perfect,
that
perfect
put
contrasting.
the spinner reel and people will be like,
Yeah,
"You need a bait
exactly.
caster for that. What are you doing?" Like,
But do
you
you
do you, I do me. Well,
exactly?
yeah,
If it
yeah,
works for you, go for it. And that's the thing with me. That um, I'm more comfortable with a bait caster. I'm more comfortable with um, sight cast. You get accurate, and do all those things, and comfort and confidence increases your. I like to think that what makes you confident is going to increase your chances when you're fishing because you kind of find what works for you, what doesn't work for you, and you stick with that. And I tell everyone, you got to become your own angler. If you're doing what everyone else is doing, that's great, and you following someone else or whatever. But if it's outside of the norm, don't feel bad if it's working for you.
yeah,
Don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And for me, I do a lot of bait casting, and I like pitching. I like doing that accuracy and all that stuff. And I started off by just backyard.
yeah,
The consistency of a cast. Bringing it back in. Of course, with a bait caster is a little bit more adjustment, so to speak. You might have to make. You still set your drag and all that stuff with a spinning reel, but with a bait caster, you have your centrifugal magnets. You have your brakes and all those
yeah.
things. You need to really uh, I'll say fine tune that and get that, and it changes with every different bait.
Yeah, I was gonna say with different weights, right? So it's
Yeah,
just like shooting a different grain bullet.
100%.
So if you got a 3 ounce jig,
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna get proficient with it, and then you're gonna tie on a 1/2 ounce jig.
You'll learn quick if you didn't make any
You're
adjustment.
gonna be coming up short. You're gonna be going long.
You might bird
So
nest.
yeah, you might
Yeah,
burn. Yeah, so
yeah. So I
it's
mean,
important tie those different weights, those different baits, and just like shooting a gun or a bow.
Yeah, you have to
Just
sharpen your skills.
yeah,
And you guys, you can start off. I get a lot of messages and stuff like from friends and followers or whatever, and they'll just hit me up and be like, "Man, I'm thinking about getting into this bait casting thing. Um, how do you recommend that what bait caster do you recommend I start with, and how do you recommend?" I was like, "Man, look, there's nothing wrong with tying on a hookless lure and going out to your backyard and just practicing, you know, the retrieve is nothing. You're just bringing it back so you can recast, but getting that flow, you can't just get out there and catapult your weights and
yeah.
your baits out. You actually got to let the rod and reel do its job and use that to where you get a smooth cast and you're learning how to I started off by feathering my um reel because I was chicken a bird's nest. So I would do that until I started like getting more practice and letting that spool just do its thing and learning how that weight is.
You'll feel it. You'll
You
hear
feel
it.
it, yeah. So
Yeah.
I used to chicken out when I first started and like stopped it with my thumb every time it would hit the water and then let it go and then that was the way I did. Now I just let it go because I've gotten to where I know how to make my adjustments better and I'm comfortable with my equipment
Yeah.
and I know how to use it. I have one of those Shimano DC. It's not a DC, it's like a SLX and it supposedly has a chip that you can't bird's nest. I can prove
I
you
bet I can bird nest it.
I can prove you wrong,
Man,
but I mean I do enjoy using it in windier uh,
good windy
conditions.
days
Yeah,
or yeah.
windy day, man. I can fight that wind with it, and I'm not really worried about it. But I still have to make my adjustments. I still have to be, they say you can just take it and cast it, and you don't have to worry about making adjustments. I beg to differ.
Man, that's what would drive me crazy with bait casters. You throw on a big spinner bait,
Yeah,
something that's going to catch a lot of wind,
yeah.
tossing it out on a windy day, and you just hit it, and you just,
You let that spool
oh
go, bro, and you're
man,
just gonna make every regret that you're like. And man, when I first started off, I started off with I started mono. Most anglers kind of start with mono, and then I went to braid, right? I didn't like the stretch in mono, so I went to braid. I started. I was doing a lot of bank fishing, and you get snagged a lot,
yeah,
and that, you know, pulling that mono back, it's like the worst way of getting that stretch finally released, and that bait's got nowhere to go but towards you, and that kind of got dangerous for me, and I went to braid, and when I first started fishing braid, I was getting a lot. It would bite on itself a lot.
yeah.
um, and I got some tricks for what I do to my braid to keep it from biting on itself and keep it, I spray what I use called lime butter. It's an Ardent brand product that I spray on my spool, and I swear by that stuff. If you guys ever catch it, I haven't really seen it too much anymore, but Ardent used to make this brand. They do a lot of the real um, cleaning kits. If you've seen them in the stores, that brand had this product called Line Butter, and it came in a little bottle. You spray it on your reel, and it would condition your line for depending if you had fluoro, mono, or braid tied on. It would help with the memory or reducing the memory on your line, and it helped it for me. One, to condition my braid, and two, so that I get a little bit more life out of it, and then three, I would actually it wouldn't bite on itself in my
Probably,
spool.
I had the same issue too with braid, and I had a person tell me just wet it,
Yeah,
get your braid wet before you
yeah.
throw it out.
Fresh water
Before you ever do it,
right on
just
top of
yeah,
that spool.
put some water on it, and that's what I've kind of done. But the butter, I mean,
Yeah, it was
yeah,
just a product that I found that I was like, hey, yeah, it was like $3 or $4. I picked it up, sprayed it on there. I really liked it,
and
and
then
I
if
was
it
just
works,
like,
it works.
yeah. I like to believe it's got some special sauce on it that
Got that special.
yeah, that kind of
So
gets,
speaking of tips and tricks, what are some of the things we can as the spawn's coming up?
yeah.
What are some things we can look at to see, like as that progresses, as the pre-spawn progresses into the spawn? I Everybody's got their own little tips and tricks,
For me,
and
it's always bait fish. Everything's bait fish.
yep,
For me, it's always like looking for bait fish. And when I start seeing the bait fish moving, typically I look for that temperature change, right? Once that temperature starts rising a little bit higher than where it's been sitting, That's where I'm gonna start seeing that bait fish start coming to the shallower areas, and where I see bait fish, typically I see hungry fish.
That's my philosophy too.
Yeah,
You find the bait, you find the fish,
there you
right?
go.
You find the bait, you find the fish, and it's kind of tough right now. The local lakes, well, the lake that I've been fishing, it's stained right now, so it's hard to see any beds.
Which is not typical for our lakes here in
It's
this
not.
area. We
Yeah.
we really fish some really clear water, um, and I mean, for me, fishing in clear water is a different kind of challenge than fishing stained. I like fishing stained water.
It's they both
Yeah,
got their pros and cons, right?
sure, sure.
I mean, you're spooking well. I mean, you could be spooking the same amount of fish in stained water, but you don't notice
You
it.
don't notice it,
So
but
it's
you definitely
placebo, right?
notice it
Yeah,
with the clear water.
right. But that clear water, sometimes it's frustrating too because you'll have a fish sitting on a bed and you just keep pitching and pitching. You'll spend 20 minutes on one fish.
So let me share a tip for the kayak anglers out there, and this is something that I used to overlook as a kayak angler myself. Typically, you get out there and you launch your kayak, you get out there, you start fishing. But how many of you guys actually start fang casting from the bank before you actually launch your kayak?
That's a good point.
I'm gonna challenge you guys to do that because how many times have you launched your kayak, pushed off, and as you're pushing off, I mean, again, I'm on a very clear lake. I'm going off, and I start seeing little black backs swimming away from me. And I'm like, gosh, I'm right on top of some bass, and I'm like, I should have fan casted before I actually launched my kayak. So I'm gonna tell you guys, if you're not doing that, you're missing out on a couple opportunities there. Just to kind of you know, before you get out there and you start casting from the kayak, maybe you can kind of match the hatch a little from the bank, and kind of prep yourself a little bit, and you get a little bit more cast, get a little bit more you might get a little bit more bites starting from the bank, and it gives you a little idea of what they're chasing, what they're biting on, and this and that. Of course, that changes around as you're moving around the lake and whatnot. But I find it as now I make it a point, like before I launch the kayak, before I even get, I'm weird about casting shadows and all that stuff. Before I even get to the bank, sometimes I'm walking up to the bank and I'm casting as far as I can.
What does that do for your mood as when you go out to fish, if you catch a fish on the bank before you ever launch a boat or a kayak, right?
I'm already
So if you catch one there, so for me, fishing is one of those. I love fishing, and I'll go fish all day and not catch a fish and still call it a good day. But the goal is to catch fish. So
yeah,
if you catch a fish before you even launch,
yeah,
that already puts you in a good mood
yes.
and boosted your confidence
It
already.
boosted my confidence. It boosted my, like you said, my mood. So now I'm already like,
You're in the game.
yeah,
When
I'm,
you get
I'm
in the
focused.
zone, you're in the zone
That's
too.
right, man. And that's the one thing I love about fishing is when you get out there, it's really just you and nature, man. It's you. You start getting in tune with like what you're seeing under you, what you're seeing when you're casting. Your senses almost are elevated. You hearing better, you're seeing better. I can I like to smell like bass.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Especially
Like you
during,
can smell it.
like you
Like
said, during the spawn, sometimes you can.
you can smell it, man.
Maybe it's
I don't know. Maybe it's just me,
yeah, maybe who knows?
but I
But
like to say it. I was like, oh, I can smell it. Maybe I'm thinking it's bedding, and I'm starting to look, around.
yeah, maybe you just start looking harder. You start noticing more.
Yeah,
Yeah. But like you said, casting out along the banks
people are
before
gonna
you
be like, you
launch,
don't smell it, man.
and hey, it's each their own.
Sure, yeah.
That's the same. I guess the same idea I have about when.
Saltwater's the same way, man. You can smell fish. I mean, um, I had a good friend of mine tell me one time, like, "Hey, you're wade fishing or you're out there on your boat or whatnot. You start smelling like that watermelon scent." He says, "Start casting." And I was like, "What?" And
And
he's
I
just
never
like,
experienced that.
"Yeah." So he's just like, trout regurgitate a stomach fluid or something that it starts to scent up like watermelon. It's like a scent,
Hmm.
and sometimes you can see like a film of water or a film on the water, and when you see that, man, start casting that area because you see that little film.
You're casting out and throw up.
Yeah, well, it's just
Yeah, no, I
it's
got
just
you.
a scent that they do, and it's like a natural thing that they do, but it's something you overlook. It's those things that we talk about, like those little tips and those little things.
It's a little like you said,
Seeing boils and all that stuff that you're out there
bank casting before you launch. That's the same philosophy I have sometimes when I'm deer hunting
Yeah.
is not moving in the dark, waiting until I can see, because as you're walking out, same thing. When you launch a boat, you see fish go everywhere.
Yes.
When you start walking through the woods, you see deer go everywhere.
We
If you
do.
would have just waited, and
Yeah.
it may not work for everybody, but
And I just feel like it again, it may not boost your odds or your chances or maybe your success. However, it kind of makes you feel a little bit more confident in the game plan you're bringing to the table, you know, and it is a game plan. You I don't know too many people just go out there aimlessly and start casting. You know, that
yeah.
you get out to the bank, even if you're bank fishing, and you look around. What do you look for?
So what I'm looking for, one, I think on the first episode that I was on here,
Mm-hmm.
I talked about how I like to use Google Earth and
Sure.
things like that, right? So especially for the spawn, I'm gonna pull up Google as a bank fisherman. I'm gonna pull up Google Earth, and I want to see the lake, how it's laid out. Does it look like it's have sand in that area? Is it rock in that area? Is it flooded timber? Whatever the case is, I want to look at that. And then the second most useful app I think a bank fisherman can have is Navionics.
Okay.
So I'm going to look at the two. I'm going to look at the
These are good for the bank and for on the boat.
and for on the boat.
Right.
Yeah, I mean I don't have a fish finder on the bank,
Right.
So I try to read the lake and then use the technology that I have in my phone at my fingertips, Navionics, Google Earth. So I'm looking at both the um, the area, the land, and the area layout around the lake, the area that I want to fish, and then I'm looking at Navionics for depth, contour, line, structure, and things like that in the water. That's
Looking for
hard.
the transitions, looking for
Yep.
those changes,
Mhm.
right? And that's definitely thing.
That's another thing. Learning how to if you look at the surrounding bank line around a lake,
Right.
so more than likely whatever's under the water right there for a good ways outside, that is what it's going to look like under that lake, whatever that land looks like on the bank. So
Right. It
just
gives a good
look.
indication
It
of
gives a
whether
good
it's
indication.
grass, whether it's rocks, whether it's
If it's a
timber.
steep drop off, or if it's a slow, mud flat slope that comes out,
Yeah.
if it's sandy, rocky, if it's sandy and rocky, and you're like, oh man, that's going to be a good bass bedding area.
Yeah.
I'm looking for those things.
And those rocks and everything play a role in the temperature. You know, the all that stuff. And we're looking for temperature changes.
Yep.
Just what like we're that's part of transitions, right? We're
Talking
looking
about how the rocks hold the heat from the sunlight and everything. Yeah.
absolutely. So I mean, they're going to bounce that heat off at a shallower um, spot in the water,
Mhm.
right? If it was grass or mud, th- there's probably going to be a 2 or 3 degree change or
Yeah,
degree.
there's going to be a water temp difference in there.
Yeah, so you use that to your advantage and know that hey, this is going to be a change of temperature. They're probably going to try to look for that area for bedding and all that stuff because they're trying to find that a little bit of a change themselves. So think like the fish are thinking,
Yep.
and typically that's going to be it's like anything. We're hunting, right?
And then fish it. If you don't get nothing, move on to, if you're fishing the rocks and you're not finding them in the rocks, move on to sand or mud flat or
Yeah.
gravel or whatever. Just move on.
So you're fishing until you're casting out and you're trying baits, you're trying presentation, right? So, uh, typically we're all throwing different things until you find out what they hit. Now you kind of hone it in. If you're fishing plastics, now you got a color idea of what they're after, a size idea of what they're after.
Speed during presentation. I mean, there's,
Yeah.
so many
So,
variables and factors in there.
look at anyone's tackle box. They don't have 100 of one thing.
Yeah.
They probably have one
Of 100 things.
Yes.
That's bass fishing is where you have to be 1 inch deep and a mile wide.
Right.
You're not going to be 1 inch wide and a mile deep on.
That's right.
Like,
So, so take your tackle and plan out, the different presentations you can offer to the fish. Some people tie on different rigs on different rods and have those rods ready. Hey, this is gonna be my top water. This is gonna be, I have one set up with a drop shot. I got one set up for, crankbaits and battle traps.
always have a top water on there. You see that boy in there.
Yeah,
Hitting that top water out.
everybody lives for that top water explosion, and we can go into days on different top water lures, and maybe we'll do that on different podcasts. But right now, we're just talking about. Actually, we're just kind of hanging out talking, and it
I mean, topic spawn. We got spawn coming, so we want.
Yeah, we wanted to talk about that, and then we also were talking before the podcast about how this season's going to be it's a little off.
Could be delayed. Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't know
we
yet
don't know.
because
So
it seemed like fish were moving shallow. Now we have this, cold front that is sticking around for a while, dropping water temps back down a few degrees. Is it going to throw the? Is it going to throw the fish movement
yeah,
off?
yeah,
Is it
and
going to throw the?
that's what we're looking to find out. And you're looking at a couple of bank stomping anglers here, man. We're just gonna get after it that way. Currently, I don't have a boat. You don't have a
I
boat.
don't.
But like anyone else that's had a boat or two,
To find another mermaid, then you
yeah,
need
I'm
boat.
in between boats right now, and I know it's not long before we're back on the water on a vessel that we can both fit around and maybe get a couple guys with us and
The thing
guys and
is, you can be
gals.
very successful on the bank. I have a lot of friends with boats, and often I catch more fish than they do when they're on their boat and I'm on the bank.
So I could tell you this: most saltwater anglers I know got their shallow sports and their magics and all them boats that they're getting out there on, and they get out to a spot and they highly encourage everyone on the boat to get off the boat. Like, we're gonna get out to this sandbar. I'm gonna walk you out to a spot where we can wade. And most people are like, I'm on a boat. Why would I get off the boat? And I'll just fish from the boat. But those that are like know the
I'm all about
secrets,
getting off the boat.
they'll get off and they walk out with the guide, and they're having so much fun out there. And like, gosh, so most saltwater guides use the boat just to
It's a tactic.
it's point
It's
A
a
to
tool.
point B. That's it. And most of the fishing is going to be getting off and getting in the water and going out there. You don't have to be too deep. Um, but it's funny how that works, right? Where eventually you're gonna get off that boat and you're gonna do some fishing from it. So again, uh, fishing these lakes is completely different than the saltwater. There are sandbars and all that stuff, but typically when you're on the boat fishing for bass, you're not leaving the boat. Yeah,
Yeah, you're not leaving the boat.
yeah,
But that's another thing. As I guess even as a boat angler
yeah,
and both a bank stomper
sure.
too, is don't overlook the small ponds to I guess kind of see when that spawn's coming on, right? So if they're spawning in the small ponds that are warming up faster than the lakes,
Talk about that. So
then
that's interesting. I like using that as a kind of like a pregame.
yeah, it's like a pregame. So
Yeah,
it just gives you a better idea of when the spawn could be happening. And when you talk about spawn on a lake too, they may be
bigger water.
bigger water, but they may be spawning on this side of the lake and they're not over here yet. So that water temp variation can be, quite a few degrees on one side of the lake to the other. But if you go to a smaller body of water, like a farm pond or
Sure. Private pond.
something like that, right? If you see that those fish are spawning and building beds, you know that those bigger lakes will be, the fish in there will be building beds and spawning
Not
very, very
not
soon.
far not far after that, but I would definitely say that those smaller ponds and those smaller lakes are definitely you're gonna see the spawn just a little bit earlier than you do
Yeah, a
in the
little bit
big lakes.
earlier. And if you can, if you got a thermometer, check that water temperature and then try to find different areas around the lake that are matching that water temp, and you're probably going to find fish that are spawning or
Good
building
point.
beds at that time.
Good point. And all that has to do with the activity, man, the bait activity. We gotta keep that in mind. We have a saying in fishing called match the hatch, right? So what's the hatch? Like, what are we talking about? We're talking about bait fish. We're talking about you know the fish that these fish are typically like the bigger largemouth and stuff that they're typically looking, they're opportunistic feeders, man. So they're going to be looking for something that comes across their path rather than them going and chasing a meal.
Yeah, I mean, and if they're on the beds already, maybe you want to look like a small invasive bluegill trying to steal the eggs or something, so that
Exactly.
the
Yeah, they react,
yep they
because I mean that's the thing is you got to wake them up. I mean, some of them are a little lethargic in the sense of where they're at, kind of getting in that bedding area. Sometimes the if you catch two large bass sitting on a bed, in a bed, typically you can guarantee that's male protecting
Yep,
eggs
yep,
and all
yep.
that stuff. So, it's weird. You can go into different things and talk about, fishing, pulling out a pre-spawn female versus a male and the difference in size and all that stuff. There's a reason,
But have you caught them in clear water and then, as soon as you catch, you do your picture and your release, right?
hmm
And you see that fish go right back within probably 60 seconds, a minute to minute and a half. You see that whether it's a male or female go right back to that nest.
I do. Yeah.
That's so cool
That
that,
is cool.
I like that.
They've done a lot of studies on the activity of fish in a lake, particularly how they um, are, even fish that are released at fishing tournaments,
They make it back.
they make it back to
They
where
make it back.
they were actually caught. And I think that's so cool
Dude,
about
Mother
fishing
Nature,
to me.
man.
That is
Can't mess
really
with it.
cool.
I mean,
Like, who would have thought that that
clean.
fish is like it's got a home,
It's
and
got
it's not just roaming around. I mean, they get outside and they do their thing, but they go back to where they were.
the way fish are. I mean, all animals, they have their built-in navigation and stuff. But you look at migratory birds;
Yep,
they go thousands of miles.
sure.
Fish that just, well, fish migrate too, thousands of miles.
Yeah,
But you catch a fish and it just goes right back home. It makes you, like SpongeBob is real, bro.
yeah.
Like,
That is pretty cool, man. I love learning about the activity of like any kind of animal
yeah,
life, and that's something about fishing that you're not like, again, that you have to you know get in tune with that nature part of it and not just go out there throwing. Oh, I've seen them throw this whopper plopper on this YouTube channel, and you're just tossing out there aimlessly. Well, why are they throwing it? What time are they throwing it? What day? What time of day?
what time of year?
What time of year? Yeah. What are the conditions of the water? What's growing under the water? All those types of things play a role into the different baits and things that we
I
catch.
think a lot of that's marketing. I mean, I think we're all guilty of it, like, I seen them catch all these fish. I'm going to buy that.
Bro, to this day,
I love 'em.
I haven't caught
And
a single fish. Actually, I have. I've caught one fish on a whopper plopper that was actually smaller than my lure.
yeah,
And I was just like, golly. But I'm like, I'm adamant about throwing that bait because I just like the way it sounds. I like the way it looks, and I think to myself, like, that's what I'd be attacking. But I've caught way more topwater fish on an old frog
yeah.
than I have on
You're gonna pick the right
or
day, the
or
right time, the right.
yeah.
You'll pick it one day, and
I know. I'm gonna have so much fun with it because that's what I'm looking for when I'm throwing it. Is I want to I
you
want
want
to.
to see that weight coming up
Oh
in your
yeah.
mouth, and
You see that bucket mouth come out and that fish just come out of that water.
hopefully you just don't do the old Jimmy Trent special and see that and be like, set the hook way too early,
Yeah,
and be like, damn, I missed it.
missed them. Yeah,
Done that a million times.
man. I used to be known as the rip lipper, bro. Saltwater fishing. My cousins used to make fun of me because I'd set the hook so hard that they're like, man, one of these days you're just getting nothing but a lower jaw. You know what I mean?
You got fish
Fish,
coming up cross-sided.
yeah, fish from the boat. I'd sit there and be sight casting, and man, I'd hook set that. I make a strong hook set, and sometimes it come off, and bing, I'd hit the boat with my jig head and
And they'd be
stuff
like,
in my.
yo, my gel coat.
Exactly,
My
yeah.
gel coat.
So how many times have you seen those gel coat knocks on the
Yeah.
side of a gunnel or something? You'd be like, know how you got
Yep. I
that?
know where that came from.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's funny.
yeah, man. So, hey, man, we just wanted to talk a little fishing today. Like I said, we recapped last week. We were talking about making baits, and this week we started talking about casting some baits. So, and what you do out there to prep for this time of year.
It's that time to start prepping too. Like, get out there and hone your skill. Get out there, start pitching and flipping, and
How many of you guys actually
get back in the
sharpen your
groove.
hooks?
That's a good one too.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, hooks are relatively, we'll say, inexpensive, but they actually get up there,
They
right?
do.
You
I
get some
have a
hooks,
lot of hooks.
you get a lot. I get a lot of hooks myself, but if they're in my tackle box still, I might want to go back in there and make sure those things are sharp, right? Especially saltwater anglers, man, because that salt gets on your gear, and you just got to double check and triple check your gear, man. That goes for anything that's in your tackle box.
It's crazy because anything marketed saltwater is typically more expensive too, but maybe there's a reason. Maybe it's better. I don't know.
So I'm gonna
I don't
be
know much about
full disclosure. I use a lot of freshwater gear in saltwater fishing, and I use like your typical like gamakatsu hooks and all that stuff, and I'm using those when I'm fishing saltwater. Um, I do rinse my gear off. You know that we talked about the difference.
yeah.
I baby my gear. I completely service all my reels and everything. But I'm using the same reel I'm using saltwater than I use freshwater.
But
I just
most of the
make
time
sure.
you're on a boat too, though, right?
No, I'm wade fishing, but I just make sure my
Oh,
reel
in
is.
saltwater, yeah,
Yeah, I'm not dunking my reels in the water, and they get wet. You're not there. You're getting splashed on and everything, and they get wet. And I just bring them back. I clean them off. I give them a good freshwater rinse when I get back to the house. Do a little recovery, pull them apart, do a little cleaning, put them back together, and I've had success with that. I mean, as far as my bearings and all that, I try to get some sealed bearings on my bait casters and stuff like that. But again, it's what I'm comfortable with. It's what I'm using. I do you like to tie leaders on? Do you do any leaders at
I
all?
do.
Yeah,
Well, not bass fishing. I don't.
yeah,
I know a lot of people do, but
yeah. I'm a leader guy.
mostly with catfishing, I do leaders
Yeah,
with everything.
yeah. So what we're talking about is like tying on a say you got a braid spooled on your reel. Do you tie any floral leaders on the end of your between your terminal tackle and your line? You got to keep in mind, man. You go out there, you spend the money on your rod, you spend the money on your reel, right? And typically that's a good investment. Um, but what's happening? The last thing between that reel and that rod tip and your terminal tackle or that fish is your line, your knot, your hook, your bait,
Yeah.
that all, like, why do you skip those steps? You know what I mean? Like, is it you gotta tie your knots and make sure your knots are if it's a kind of knot and you're tying like fluoro or mono, are you wetting your
Yeah.
knot?
Always.
You
Yep.
gotta wet it, or else that knot's gonna burn itself in there, and you'll learn the hard way.
Yep.
Trust me. As soon as you hook set or that fish goes and you know, first time it takes a dive under a log or something, and you pull that knot, and you most of the time when you're coming off, it's something self-induced.
Do you run the leader for the abrasion resistance
I
rather
run
than
a
the braid? Is that
I run a leader. So for me, just for my again confidence or whatever, I like the I feel like it gives me a room with that invisible, like they can't see my braid. That's just me. I do prefer tying a floral leader, and I do it for the abrasion as well. But I tie a uni knot from my braid to my floral leader,
yeah.
and sometimes I'll do like an Albright knot, or I think that's what they call it, or I think there's Alberto knot or whatever.
Man, there's so many
Yeah, so
knots. It can be
it's
the same knot.
or
There's
FG knot.
17 different names.
FG knot. That's another term for it or whatever. So look them up on YouTube if you haven't. I think we even got
I'm with you. Uni knot. If I'm doing it that way, uni knot braid to.
we got some we have some shorts on our YouTube channel on how to tie some of these knots and rigs. So if or comment in here if you want a special kind of knot or something, we can do some how tos or whatever. But
or different rig setups for bass, for catfish, for carp, for
yeah,
even gar. Like I have a
yeah.
different gar setup than I do for everything else.
Yeah, so like I mean it's just those things that we talk about when we're talking about fishing is like don't don't focus on just one thing. Every little thing matters. And that's like, when we're fishing, what you're looking for. Another thing I look for when I go fishing is first thing I get to the water is I look for birds. I look for
Fresh water too.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it just kind of gives me an idea. If there's a bird
there's bait
stalking,
fish.
I it kind of gives me an idea what those are the best anglers out on the lake. Those
Yeah,
those
for
those
sure.
birds have been fishing far longer than we have, and I use that as an indication of where the bait fish are. And again, I feel like where the bait fish is where
Bait fish equal big fish.
I'm going for it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, man. Well, shoot, we talked about the spawn, and we talked about how we think this year is going to be a little challenge, and I look forward to seeing the success from our viewers and followers to send us some pictures, send us some comments, and how your fishing's going this spawn, and let us know, man, and we'll share some pics and some videos with you guys as well as we're getting after it. Whether it's successful or not successful, we're gonna share the same. You know what I mean?
And if you're in the Central Texas area and you see the weather change this past week and been on the water and seen fish in the shallows, let us know what you think. Do you think it's going to be pushed to the right a little further? You know, another
Yeah.
2 weeks, a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks further out than what we initially thought it was going to be?
Yeah, think about the tournament fishing in this area, how that's going to change.
There's a big tournament coming up soon.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
going to be it's going to be changing how they fish. You know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to seeing that whole um, season launch. And this is a big tournament fishing. These are some decent tournament fishing lakes, and I think our local lake here gets about 80 to 90 boats a week in their tournament. That's a lot of boats on a lake.
yeah, that's a lot of not. I mean, a lot of boats and pressure. You know,
Yeah, yeah. So that changes everything for every angler out there, whether it's kayak, bank fishing anglers, um, the boat anglers
tell
that
you what, if they do come and if you got a boat and you're coming to fish these Central Texas lakes, watch out.
yeah,
Watch out for those stumps. And I mean, lakes are low. Things are.
yeah.
I
Probably
have
wouldn't
seen.
have a gel coat boat on the water.
No, I have seen some stories of people going out and destroying some boats and lower units and things like that. Just
Yeah,
things are popping up that haven't been there in years.
yeah.
They're that low.
Well, guys, man, we're gonna wrap it up here, but we had a good time just hanging out, talking fishing with you guys. Again, we can schedule these podcasts with a specific topic, or we can just sit here and chop it up with you guys and just talk fishing and hunting. And today we talked a little fishing with y'all. Um, what can we look forward to in the next podcast? What do you think we can line up? I know we're still trying to get old Game Warden to come on and
Yeah,
sit
we need.
down with
Yeah,
us,
we
so
want
that's gonna
Game
be
Warden to
fun.
come on. I have a huge passion and love for turkey hunting. So at some point we'll talk some turkey hunting.
Man, I'm
And
looking forward to that.
we
I have never gone turkey hunting. Jimmy's gonna take me out this season for the first time, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe we can share some of that with you guys through some content that we bring in the podcast, like we've done in the past with some of our previous hunts. So
and we're working with getting um, professional, semi-professional turkey hunter on.
yeah,
So we'll get that lined up and maybe
talk a
maybe
little
that
turkey talk.
little turkey talk.
All right, so
Little turkey talk.
we'll get him to bring some calls on. Maybe we can do actually talking turkey.
Yeah, maybe we can talk back and forth.
There you go.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah,
cool. You
that'd be
guys
cool.
can show me what that language looks like. Um, guys, we hope you enjoyed this episode with us, man. Again, this was season 1, episode 10. We're gonna be bringing you guys weekly episodes. So I know that we've kind of missed a few. We got busy in the hunting season.
Busy.
I had to travel for work, so we hit it when we can, and we're trying to stay consistent. So we appreciate you guys following. Hey, listen, if you like this kind of podcast and you got some friends or some family that they might like this kind of podcast, make sure you're sharing. Share the link with your friends and family, man. We're trying to grow the podcast, and we're having fun doing it. So we hope you're having fun with us. Pinche Ben and Jimmy, PB and J, signing off. See you on the next one. Peace.
Peace.
That was fun.
Yeah.